I thought I was the hero of this story. I spent $50,000, my entire life savings, to save my mother-in-law's life. Only to find out she was planning to ruin mine before the anesthesia even wore off. This story was sent to us by a subscriber who wants to remain anonymous. But her message is a chilling warning to anyone who thinks loyalty can buy love in a toxic family. She learned the hard way that you should never confuse a predator's desperate need with a family member's affection. Today, we explore a betrayal so deep it will make your blood boil, and a revenge so cold it might just give you the chills. This is the story of how a perfect daughter-in-law realized she was nothing more than a silent bank account, and how she finally decided to close the vault for good. If you've ever felt used by the people who were supposed to protect you, this story is for you. Let's dive into the letter she sent us. Chapter 1: The Golden Cage. My name is Clara. For 8 long years, I lived in a state of perpetual exhaustion. Working 60 hours a week at a high-end architectural firm. My husband, David, was what people call a perpetual dreamer, a polite way of saying he hadn't held a job for more than 6 months in a decade. His mother, Evelyn, was the matriarch of the family, living in a beautiful, sprawling Victorian house that was slowly crumbling into disrepair. Much like the family's supposed prestige. To the outside world, we were a successful, happy family. But inside those walls, I was the only one holding up the ceiling. "Clara, dear," Evelyn would purr, sipping the expensive Earl Grey tea that I had delivered to her door every month. "You truly are the backbone of this family. Without your brilliance and your hard work, I don't know where David or I would be." At the time, those words felt like a warm embrace. I felt validated. I felt powerful. I didn't realize that I was being carefully groomed. I was the one who paid for the vacations. The one who covered the property taxes on a house I didn't own. And the one who swiped the credit card every time a crisis arose. I thought I was buying my way into their hearts. In reality, I was just paying an exorbitant rent for a seat at a table where I was eventually going to be the main course. I was a guest in my own life, funding a lifestyle for 2 people who viewed my ambition as their personal lottery win. Chapter 2: The $50,000 Crisis. 6 months ago, the facade finally cracked. Evelyn collapsed during a garden party, and the diagnosis was grim. A severe heart condition that required immediate, complex surgery. When we looked into the insurance, we discovered a nightmare. David had been tasked with managing the policy, but he had forgotten to pay the premiums for nearly a year. The policy was void. The hospital demanded a $50,000 deposit just to schedule the procedure. David fell apart in the hospital hallway, sobbing into his hands. "Clara, please. If we lose her, I lose everything. She's my only mother. I'll do anything. I'll get a job. I'll work night shifts. I'll be the husband you deserve. Just please, don't let her die because of my mistake." I looked at my private savings account. That money represented 8 years of skipped lunches, missed holidays, and late nights at the office. It was my freedom fund, the only thing that gave me security in a marriage that felt increasingly one-sided. But as I watched my husband tremble, I felt a wave of misplaced guilt. I signed the papers. I transferred the full $50,000 that afternoon. I became the family savior. While Evelyn was in recovery, I was there every morning before work and every night after. I fluffed her pillows, I hired a private nurse with my remaining credit. And I made sure David didn't have to lift a finger, so he wouldn't be traumatized by the stress. I truly believed that this sacrifice would be the thing that finally made me a real daughter in her eyes. Chapter 3: The Kitchen Truth. Evelyn's recovery was nothing short of miraculous. To celebrate her second chance at life, she insisted on hosting a family dinner at her house. I was beyond exhausted. I had just finished a grueling 3-week project. But I dragged myself there, carrying a $100 bottle of wine as a peace offering. I arrived a few minutes early. The front door was slightly ajar, and as I stepped into the foyer, I heard the clinking of glasses and the sound of laughter coming from the kitchen. It wasn't the weak, frail laughter of a recovering patient. It was sharp, loud, and mocking. I moved closer to the kitchen to find a corkscrew, but I froze when I heard Evelyn's sister, Aunt Martha, speak. So, did the little architect actually pay the whole bill? No questions asked? Evelyn snickered, a sound that sent a chill down my spine. Like a mindless ATM, Martha. I told David to turn on the waterworks, and she fell for it instantly. She's a bigger fool than we imagined. Now that she's sunk $50,000 into my health, she's stuck with us. She won't dare leave David now. She'll want to protect her investment. Once my husband's inheritance clears next month, I'm putting it all into a private trust for David that she can't touch. We'll keep her working until she's completely burned out, and then, once we've milked her dry, we'll discard her like an old rag. David deserves a wife from our own social circle anyway. Not a workhorse like her. David didn't defend me. He just chuckled and said, "Mom, don't be too hard on her. She's useful for now. I haven't had to worry about a bill in years." Chapter 4: The Cold Calculation. I stood in that hallway, clutching the wine bottle so hard I thought the glass might shatter. My heart didn't just break, it hardened into a block of ice. Every "thank you," every "I love you," and every tear shed in that hospital had been a calculated lie. I didn't storm in. I didn't scream. I realized that if I reacted emotionally, they would just gaslight me into believing I misheard them. Instead, I took a deep breath, stepped back out the front door, waited 2 minutes, and then re-entered, slamming the door loudly to announce my arrival. "I'm here. Sorry I'm late," I called out with a voice that sounded disturbingly cheerful. Throughout the dinner, I was a masterpiece of deception. I smiled, I toasted to Evelyn's health, and I listened to them talk about the future. But under the table, my thumbs were flying across my phone screen. I wasn't checking social media. I was messaging my divorce attorney and my bank's fraud department. When Evelyn began her usual routine of complaining about the leaky roof and the rising cost of living, looking at me expectantly, I didn't reach for my purse. I simply looked at David and said, "Actually, Evelyn, I have great news. I spoke to a friend in construction, and they're looking for laborers. David can start on Monday. With his new salary, he can finally pay for your roof repairs himself. Isn't that wonderful, honey?" The silence that followed was deafening. David nearly choked on his wine, and Evelyn's face turned a sickly shade of gray. The ATM was starting to show an error message, and they weren't prepared for it. Chapter 5: The Final Notice. The next morning, while David was still snoring in bed, I was already gone. I didn't leave a note filled with tears. I left a professional-grade folder on the kitchen island. Inside, there was no check for the roof. Instead, there were the served divorce papers and a comprehensive, line-item invoice, detailing every cent I had loaned the family over the last 8 years, including the $50,000 surgery. I had already moved my personal accounts to a different bank and changed the locks on the office I rented. I had also contacted the executor of her late husband's estate, dropping a helpful tip about her undisclosed gambling debts that might complicate her inheritance trust. The fallout was spectacular. My phone was bombarded with 42 missed calls and a series of increasingly hysterical voice notes. Evelyn called me a traitor, a heartless snake, and accused me of trying to kill her by causing her stress. David begged, then threatened, then begged again. I didn't respond to a single one. I simply forwarded everything to my lawyer. 3 months later, without my 6-figure salary to subsidize their delusions, the Victorian house was put up for auction. The inheritance Evelyn had bragged about was seized to pay back taxes she had ignored for years. They ended up in a cramped, 2-bedroom apartment on the edge of town. David finally had to take that construction job, and for the first time in his life, he learned what it felt like to actually earn $1. Clara lost $50,000 that day in the hospital, but she often says it was the best investment she ever made. It was the price of seeing the truth. Today, she is living her life on her own terms, traveling to the places she used to only dream about while sitting at her desk. The betrayal was deep, and the scars are real. But the freedom she gained is priceless. It's a bitter reality to realize that the people you call family might only value you for what you can provide, rather than who you are. But once you see the mask slip, you can never unsee it. Now, I want to hear from you, our community. Was Clara's move too cold? Should she have confronted them at the dinner table? Or was the silent exit the most powerful way to handle it? And more importantly, have you ever had a moment where you realized you were being used by someone you loved? How did you find the strength to walk away? Share your stories in the comments below. We read every single one of them. And your experience might be the light that helps someone else escape their own golden cage. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories of resilience and justice. I'll see you in the next one.